biggest things I've struggled with all my life is being disciplined. Now, whether that's being a student at university, doing assignments or preparing for an exam, or whether that's a passion project, like learning a hobby or running this YouTube channel. And I've always been a very enthusiastic person who's passionate, and when I feel motivated or when I'm in the mood, I can be incredibly productive and get a lot of things done, especially when it's the last minute and an assignment is due the next day. But at the same time, I'm also the sort of person who can go from that high of being very productive one day to doing absolutely nothing the next. And I've always been incredibly inconsistent when it comes to discipline. And I think one of the biggest contributing factors to this inconsistency is I really do struggle with perfectionism. And it's not something that I have personally admitted to in the past, but anyone who has worked with me or has observed me working in some capacity knows that I am in fact a perfectionist. And I think I've always justified that by saying things like, I take a great deal of pride in creating work with love and care and doing it to the best of my ability, and not just getting work done. And so whether that was spending what some people might have thought of as unnecessary time to make the slides in my presentation look as good as they could be, or adding that extra level of polish to a persuasive writing task I had at school, all the way to spending an extra 2 to 3 days making an assignment at university look good, even though there was no apparent reason to put in the effort. As I said, I value doing that, the additional time and care and love and effort that goes into that final level of polish is something I greatly appreciate. And every single time when I haven't done that, when I haven't made things perfect or I haven't made them as good as they could be, I tend to lose sleep over it and regret it. And I know it's a weird way of thinking, but that's just how I am. But I think one of the negative results of this that I've seen in my life is, sometimes I'm working on an essay, presentation, a YouTube video, and I have such high expectations of myself that sometimes I get incredibly overwhelmed to the point where I don't even think the thing that I'm writing down or the video that I'm making is good enough. And it is incredibly crippling to the point where I don't even do anything. And as a student in university, I have used this as an excuse to procrastinate from doing my assignments for weeks at a time. And it's usually that deadline imminently approaching in the last minute that gets me to get the work done. But do you know what's even sadder than that? Sometimes in life, there are things that you want to do, that you're passionate about. Like developing a skill, developing a hobby, contributing in a group meeting, or making YouTube videos. And these things don't have a deadline. And the thing is, sometimes when there is no deadline, it's really easy to get in the state of thinking that because I have so much time, I'm just going to wait for the perfect moment to come around when I've got the perfect set of ideas, where I feel perfectly confident, where everyone tells me my ideas are perfect, and then I'll start. And the thing I've realized over the past year and a bit is that moment never comes. And I've had people come up to me and tell me this. That the idea of perfectionism is holding me back and that I should adopt a bit of discipline. But I've always ignored the advice that I've been given because this is who I am. And if I start doing something, whether that be planning out a YouTube video or writing a script, and I don't feel like it and I don't feel truly inspired in the moment, I am not being my authentic self. And this idea of authenticity, of being someone who only does things to the level of perfect, who only works when he truly feels passionate, is something that I have used to hide behind for all my life. And it's very true for the way I've treated my YouTube channel in the past. I started this channel 3 years ago and I just posted whenever I felt like it. When I felt inspired, when I felt like I had the perfect idea, when I felt motivated. And that led to a very sporadic pattern of me posting on YouTube. And sometimes I'd even go 7 months without making a single video. And what was happening in those 7 months was sometimes I'd have 100 ideas written down on a page, and I'd go through each one of those ideas and I would find 3 to 4 excuses as to why I couldn't do them. From not thinking this was the perfect idea, to not feeling creative and confident in the moment, to feeling like an imposter and wondering what people would think about me, to I don't have the time to do this because of my lack of discipline, all the way to the fear of sitting down, recording a video which is still not a natural thing for me, and then uploading it on the internet for anyone to see. There's something about putting myself out there that to this day still terrifies me. And maybe it's just me, but as great as perfectionism has been for me, and I enjoy making things perfect, I think I began to see how crippling it was in all my work. And in my attempt to, become a little less of a perfectionist, I came across an incredible analogy that a guy by the name of Seth Godin gives in one of his books called The Practice, subtitled Shipping Creative Work, something very relevant to what I do. And maybe one day I'll make a video on the lessons I've learned from this book. But I think in the book, or in a talk he was giving about the book, he had this brilliant analogy that completely changed the way I approach doing creative work. And it goes like this. So imagine you're going down a path one day, and while you're along your walk, you see a toddler drowning in a pond. What do you do in that moment? Do you ask yourself, I don't know if I'm the most qualified swimmer, I haven't swum at the Olympics, or I don't feel like it? You don't say dumb things like that. You just save the kid. Because in that moment, you were there and you had the opportunity to make a contribution by saving the kid's life. And if you don't save the toddler's life, the toddler dies. And quite literally, the world is a lesser place for it. And Seth Godin talks about how the same thing applies in our creative work. That in everything that we do, we have an opportunity to make a contribution, to show up with the intent to serve someone else, to help someone else in everything that we do. And I remember hearing that after 7 months of not posting on YouTube and feeling incredibly convicted. Because when I look at who I am, the skills that I have with what has been given to me, the experience I've had as a student in university, the lessons that I have learnt along the way, I realize that I have an opportunity to show up and serve at least someone. At least someone's day could be better. At least someone's experience at university could be better if I showed up and made a contribution. And if I let my selfishness, my imposter syndrome, my perfectionism, my fear of failure, my complete lack of discipline, procrastination, self-pity get in the way of me making a contribution, that if I use those things as an excuse for not doing anything, then quite literally, the world is a lesser place for at least one individual or a small group of people, and I'm responsible for that. And so there's a reason for me to get my life together a bit more, to be a little bit more disciplined, to show up with the intent to serve someone else, and to put the work in, even before I feel like it, because I don't need to give in to my feelings, because I can choose to be that kind of person. I can choose to be the kind of person who makes a contribution. And so out of that realization that I do have an opportunity and a responsibility to help someone else, along with some of the other realizations I got out of this book, I decided to post once a week. That another video is coming out next Tuesday regardless of what happens. And so now I don't need to have an internal monologue with myself as to whether or not I make another video, because the decision's already been made. Instead, now I can focus on how can I serve one person. I think it was out of this that I began to appreciate the value of discipline. That I don't need to wait for those feelings of motivation to come along. That I don't need to listen to that voice in my head telling me I'm an imposter. That I don't need to spend time waiting for the perfect idea to come. That I can just get to work. I can just have the discipline, or the practice, as Seth Godin likes to call it, of showing up to the work that I do with the intent to serve, because I have a responsibility to do so. And that's the thing about discipline, or the practice, that you don't need to wait for your feelings to come along. You can make a decision and decide the person you want to be and the change you want to make. And as I've always said about the things I say on this channel, this doesn't just apply to starting a YouTube channel or doing creative work. That in everything that we do, we can approach it with the same mindset. And if you're a student out there and you've always struggled to find a reason to put in the work, have you ever considered why we go to university for many years to gain all this knowledge? Have you ever wondered why people ask you to get your life in order, to be more disciplined, to organize and manage your time better? It's because you have something to contribute to those around you. From small interactions with your friends, your peers, your family, all the way to your career as a doctor, teacher, businessman, etc. And if you just procrastinate, be a perfectionist, wait for the perfect opportunity or ideas or feelings of motivation to come along, nothing happens, nothing gets done. You don't become the person you want to be. And not only do you miss out, but the people around you and the world. And so that's why we learn, so that with the knowledge that we gain, we can use it to help other people. That's why we improve ourselves. That's why we study. That's why we learn to communicate better, so that we can connect with someone else, as uncomfortable as that might seem. So that we can be the sort of person that people can look to fix a problem. That we can be the sort of person that people can give responsibility to. The sort of person who makes a contribution. And I know I've said this on my channel before, but I genuinely believe it, that there are two ways you can do every job. The first way is to just do your job. The second way is to show up with the intent to serve, and to see every interaction you have with someone else as an opportunity to make a contribution, to make them laugh, to make them smile, to change their day, to educate them, to inspire them, to save their life, to get them from here to where they need to go. And so whether you are serving a cup of coffee to a customer, in that moment, you have an opportunity to make that person's day better. Or maybe you realize that there are a group of people who are in desperate need of a solution. Maybe it's some students who need to be tutored. Maybe it's elderly people who can't get access to medication because they can't travel to the pharmacy. And then you start a business because you want to serve those people, because you want to get them from here to where they need to go. Or maybe you're a senior cardiologist in a hospital who provides life-saving surgery. Or maybe you're just the nurse who takes care of the patient after the surgery and interacts with their loved ones. In each of these scenarios, you have the opportunity to change things for the better. And so that's why you should get your life together and be more disciplined. To change things, to make a difference. And that's the whole point of taking responsibility. Of picking yourself, of owning your learning, so that you can make a contribution and serve others in everything you do.